Hey, it's Terry Gorry, and this is the Irish Law and Small Business podcast. In this video, I want to take a look at the question of independent personality of a legal company, of a limited company. Many people don't understand, especially businessmen and women who run their own small business, don't understand that a company has a separate legal personality from the directors and from the shareholders. So the shareholders own the shares in the business, in the company rather, and they appoint directors to run the company. But the company has a separate, independent legal personality. That's very, very important as a general principle, but there is a number of very, very practical measures, very, very practical effects arising from that, and I'm going to look at 5 or 6 of them here. The first one is to do with debt collection. If you're trading with somebody and there is a limited company involved, then you need to be careful and you need to ensure that you are pursuing the correct entity. If the limited company incurred the debt and did the business with you, then in those circumstances the correct defendant will be the limited company, not Mick or Mary or Jane or whoever, Sean, with whom you did business or thought you were doing business. You may well have done business with and entered into a contract with and supplied perhaps the limited company, but the limited company, remember, has a separate legal personality, so you need to be absolutely clear about who owes you the money, and it may well be the limited company. If that's the case, that's the case. The second practical effect of limited companies' separate legal personality is in court proceedings. An individual can go to court and can represent himself. He can defend himself or bring a claim, bring a case, institute proceedings. However, a limited company cannot do that, and cannot do that through its directors or its shareholders. A limited company must instruct a legal professional, must instruct a solicitor to be represented in court, because a director cannot represent a company in court. Another practical effect of the separate legal personality of a limited company is in relation to assets and liabilities. Limited company may well have property, may well have assets and liabilities on its balance sheet. It may have cash, it may have property, it may have motor vehicles, it may also have liabilities. But all of those assets and all of those liabilities are the liabilities and assets of the limited company. So if a director is involved or a shareholder or whoever, and they're looking to get money out of the company, for example, the money belongs to the company if the money is in the balance sheet of the company, and therefore there's going to be tax implications for a director or for a shareholder if it's a small company in getting cash out of the company. But the fundamental point is the company has a separate, independent legal personality, and if the company owns the money, well then it's the company's property. The fourth area where the independent legal personality, the separate legal personality of a company may be important is when the company is an employer. An employee may bring a claim to the WRC or the Labour Court or in the civil courts against the employer, but it's important that if the employer is the limited company, then it's the limited company that is the correct defendant, the correct respondent to an employment claim. And employees who are contemplating bringing proceedings or bringing claims for employment law breaches need to be clear about that. There's no point bringing a claim against a manager or a supervisor or the owner of the company if in fact the company was the employer, because remember, a company has a separate legal personality. Personal injury claims. Again, if an employee has an accident and is bringing a personal injury claim through the courts or through the injuries board against the company who he says is liable for the injury that he has sustained, well then the correct defendant in those circumstances won't necessarily be the directors or the shareholders of the company, but will be the company. So again, you see the vital importance, the practical importance of a limited company having an independent legal personality. It's absolutely vital to recognise that. And finally, the question of partnership. I always often meet lads and lassies who talk to me about being in business, perhaps in a limited company with somebody, and they're in a partnership and they're now going their own way and so on and so forth. But what they fail to understand and fail to recognise is a partnership is not a limited company, and a limited company is not a partnership. They're two separate, different legal entities. And in a partnership situation, each partner is jointly and severally liable, for example, for debts, whereas in a limited company, the promoters, the shareholders, the directors are not liable personally. It's the company that is liable for the debts. But just in terms of being in the partnership and so on, there's an inconsistency and a lack of congruence, as it were. It's simply untrue that you're in a partnership when you're in a limited company, because you're not. You might think you are. You may be carrying on business as if you are, but in fact you're not. You have a limited company and you may have 50% of the shareholding, but that's a separate issue. Anyway, I hope looking at those few points that you can see the vital importance of the independent legal personality that a company has, and that it has not just a theoretical importance or significance, but has very practical day-to-day value and importance when it comes, as I say, to all of those issues like debt collection or employment claims, property, assets, liabilities, personal injury claims, and so on. Hope you find this video useful. If you do, I'd appreciate if you gave it the thumbs up down below, and you may be interested in subscribing to my YouTube channel. If you are, just hit the subscribe button and hit the bell icon and you'll be notified every time I make a video. Thanks a lot.